Sam Richards straightened his uniform as he waited in the main lobby of the Earth Galactic Embassy. Today was an important day. As the military liaison officer, he had been assigned to give Ambassador Zeka Thora, from the Vexilian Confederation, a tour of the facility. This was only the third month since Earth had joined the Galactic Alliance, and first impressions still mattered a great deal. The embassy doors slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Zekthora entered, flanked by two aides. The ambassador had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lobby lights. 4 dark eyes blinked independently as they scanned the room. The thin, 7-foot-tall figure moved with a grace that made it seem like floating rather than walking. "Ambassador Zekthora, welcome to the Earth Embassy," Sam said with a slight bow. "I'm Lieutenant Sam Richards. I'll be your guide today." "Greetings, Lieutenant," the ambassador replied. Its voice sounded like wind chimes in a light breeze. "We are most curious to learn more about your species' customs and facilities." Sam smiled and gestured toward the main hallway. "Then let's begin. I think you'll find our embassy combines both Earth traditions and accommodations for our galactic friends." As they walked, Sam pointed out various features of the building. He showed the ambassador the meeting halls, the diplomatic offices, and the communications center that maintained constant contact with other worlds. The tour was going well. The ambassador seemed impressed by the efficient design and asked thoughtful questions. "And here we have our botanical garden," Sam said as they entered a large glass-domed room filled with plants from Earth and several alien worlds. "We've tried to create comfortable spaces for all species who visit us. Most considerate," the ambassador noted, leaning down to examine a flowering plant from its home world. "It is rare to see a Vexilian night bloom outside our system." After the garden, they continued down the east wing of the building. Sam was about to show them the cafeteria when loud shouts erupted from a room ahead. "Boom! Headshot! That's 3 in a row!" "No fair! You were camping behind that wall." "All's fair in love and war, buddy. Get good." Ambassador Zekthora stiffened. The frilled ridges along its neck expanded, a sign of alarm that Sam recognized too late. "What is happening there?" the ambassador asked, voice now sharp and cold. "Oh, that's just the recreation room," Sam explained casually. "Sounds like some off-duty personnel are playing games." Without waiting for further explanation, the ambassador glided toward the open doorway. Sam hurried after, suddenly realizing this might not go well. Inside the recreation room, 6 humans sat or stood wearing virtual reality headsets. Their hands gripped motion controllers, and they moved around in small designated spaces. On large screens mounted on the walls, their in-game perspectives showed a war-torn urban landscape where they hunted each other with various weapons. "Got you, Nathan," shouted a woman as she made a shooting motion. On her screen, a digital soldier collapsed in a spray of red. The ambassador's 4 eyes widened and its skin paled from blue to almost white. "These are your people. Enjoying this?" Zekthora asked quietly. Sam nodded, only now recognizing how this might appear to a species that had eliminated all forms of violent entertainment centuries ago. "It's just a game, Ambassador. Virtual reality, nobody is actually getting hurt. It's how some humans relax after work." The ambassador's aides were now recording everything with small devices. One whispered urgently into what appeared to be a communication tool. "You relax by simulating the murder of your own kind?" The ambassador's voice trembled slightly. "It's not really like that," Sam tried to explain. "It's more about strategy, teamwork, and friendly competition. The combat aspect is just the setting." Just then, a young man in the corner shouted, "Die, die, die," as his character unleashed some kind of ultimate ability, wiping out 3 opponents at once. His friends groaned in frustration while he pumped his fist in victory. The ambassador turned away abruptly. "I believe I have seen enough of this particular area, Lieutenant. Shall we continue?" Sam nodded, feeling a growing sense of unease. "Of course. Let me show you our diplomatic quarters next." As they left the recreation room, Sam noticed Olivia Martinez, the embassy's cultural attaché, watching from down the hall with a concerned expression. She had clearly observed the interaction and recognized something had gone wrong. She made a subtle gesture indicating she would talk to Sam later. The rest of the tour proceeded with noticeably less warmth. The ambassador asked fewer questions and seemed distracted. When they finally returned to the lobby, Zek Thora bowed stiffly. "Thank you for your time, Lieutenant. Your facility is educational." Before Sam could respond properly, the ambassador and aides departed quickly. Olivia hurried over as soon as they were gone. "What happened?" The ambassador looked upset. Sam sighed. "They saw the VR gaming room. I don't think the Vexilians approve of our combat simulators." "Oh no." Olivia's face fell. The Vexilian Confederation eliminated all forms of violent entertainment after their third civil war, about 500 years ago. They consider simulated violence a sign of dangerous psychological tendencies. "You're telling me this now?" Sam ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I just found out they were visiting today. I was coming to intercept you before you reached that part of the tour." She pulled out her tablet. "This is bad. The Vexilians hold significant influence in the Galactic Council." Sam's communicator beeped. It was a message from his superior. "Urgent meeting, diplomatic incident, 1500 hours. Great," he muttered, "just great." Meanwhile, on their shuttle back to the Vexilian embassy, Ambassador Zek Thora was already dictating an urgent report to the Confederation Council. "Most disturbing discovery today," the ambassador spoke softly. "Humans engage in recreational activities simulating warfare and death. Their young people show excitement and pleasure when virtually killing representations of their own kind. I strongly recommend a full psychological evaluation of the species before further integration into galactic society. They may be inherently more violent than they have thus far revealed. The casual nature of this behavior is perhaps most concerning. They see nothing wrong with it." The aide recording the message looked up. "Do you think they're dangerous, Ambassador?" Zekathora's frills fluttered in contemplation. "I do not know, but a species that finds joy in simulated killing, even as a game." The ambassador trailed, off gazing out at the blue-green planet below. "We must proceed with caution." Back at the embassy, Olivia was already assembling a crisis team. "We need to prepare a full cultural context briefing immediately," she told her staff. "And someone get me Jack Peterson from Interspecies Relations. This is about to become a galactic incident." Sam stood at the window, watching the Vexilian shuttle disappear into the clouds, wondering how a simple tour had gone so wrong so quickly. News traveled fast in the Galactic Alliance. Within 3 days of Ambassador Zek Thora's visit to the Earth Embassy, reports about humans' disturbing recreational habits had spread to 17 different species. Emergency meetings were called. Diplomatic channels buzzed with concerned messages. Video clips of humans playing combat games, carefully edited to look as alarming as possible, circulated among alien officials. Jack Peterson rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the holographic display showing the latest news from across the galaxy. As Director of Interspecies Relations, this crisis had landed squarely on his desk. "Sir, the Galaxian ambassador is requesting that Earth representatives be temporarily barred from council meetings," his assistant said, adding another problem to the growing list. "On what grounds?" Jack asked, though he already knew the answer. "They're citing security concerns. They say they cannot feel safe in closed chambers with beings who practice killing for pleasure." Jack sighed deeply. "And the Merluvians?" "They've formally requested a full psychological evaluation of all human diplomats before continuing trade negotiations." The situation was spiraling out of control. What had begun as a simple misunderstanding was turning into a full diplomatic crisis that threatened Earth's newly established position in the galactic community. "Get me a direct line to the Vexilian embassy," Jack said, "and set up the emergency briefing for tomorrow morning. We need every friendly alien representative there." His assistant nodded and left quickly to make the arrangements. Jack turned back to the holographic display. The headlines from the Galactic News Network weren't encouraging. "Humans, peaceful allies or violent predators in disguise." "Simulated warfare. Human entertainment raises concerns." Galaxian Council proposes temporary quarantine of Earth. The door to his office slid open, and Olivia Martinez walked in. The cultural attaché looked as tired as Jack felt. The xenopsychology team needs to see you, she said. Lisa Coleman has some findings that might help us. 10 minutes later, Jack sat in a conference room with Lisa Coleman, the lead anthropologist specializing in comparative xenopsychology. She had been working day and night to prepare a response to the crisis. Director Peterson, we've compiled data from 27 different human cultures, Lisa explained, displaying charts on the room's main screen. The evidence is clear. Humans who engage in simulated combat activities show no greater tendency toward real violence than those who don't. Will the aliens believe that? Jack asked. Lisa frowned. That's the problem. Most galactic species don't separate simulation from reality the way we do. For them, practicing violence even in a game is the same as intending violence. So what do we do? Olivia asked. We need to show them, not just tell them, Lisa replied. I propose a controlled demonstration with volunteer aliens actually trying these games while we monitor their stress levels and reactions. Once they experience it firsthand, they might understand. Jack looked doubtful. Getting them to volunteer might be difficult given the current climate. Actually, Olivia said, the Drenthax cultural attaché has expressed curiosity about human games. They're warriors by tradition but have been peaceful for centuries. They might be willing to participate. One alien is a start, Jack said. We need more. The next morning, Jack faced a room full of alien representatives. Some looked wary, others openly hostile. Ambassador Zekthora sat in the front row, frills slightly extended in what humans had learned was a sign of alertness or tension. Distinguished representatives, Jack began. Thank you for coming. I understand there are concerns about human recreational activities, specifically our video games. A Gralaxian representative interrupted, their translator device conveying their sharp tone. Concerns? Your species simulates warfare for pleasure. This goes beyond concern. Jack nodded patiently. I understand how this appears to your cultures, but there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what these activities mean to humans. He gestured to Lisa, who stepped forward with her presentation. She explained human psychology, the difference between simulation and reality in human minds, and presented the statistical evidence showing no correlation between gaming and violent behavior. The aliens listened, but many still looked unconvinced. The Merluvian representative, a tall being with shimmering scales, spoke next. Our species eliminated all forms of conflict millennia ago. We cannot comprehend how beings could find enjoyment in even pretend violence. That's why we're proposing a cultural exchange, Jack said. We invite representatives to experience these games firsthand under supervision. You'll see that humans clearly separate fantasy from reality. Murmurs spread through the room. Most representatives looked skeptical. Then a deep voice spoke from the back of the room. The Drenthax will participate. All eyes turned to see Ambassador Krill, a stocky humanoid with ridged skin, standing. The Drenthax were known for their past as warriors before they had become peaceful traders. Our ancestors once glorified battle, Ambassador Krill continued. Perhaps we can offer perspective on this human custom. It was a small victory, but Jack would take it. By the end of the meeting, 3 species had agreed to the cultural exchange program, while 14 others remained firmly opposed. As the representatives filed out, Ambassador Zekthora approached Jack. Director Peterson, while I appreciate your efforts, my report to the Confederation stands. We find these human practices deeply concerning. Ambassador, I ask only that you keep an open mind, Jack replied. Different species have different ways of processing emotions and experiences. Zekthora's frills flattened against its neck. Some differences may be too great to bridge, Director. After the ambassador left, Olivia joined Jack by the window, overlooking the embassy gardens. That could have gone worse, she said. It could have gone better too, Jack replied. The Vexilians are key members of the Alliance Council. Without their support, Earth's position remains precarious. The cultural exchange program starts tomorrow, Olivia reminded him. If even one alien representative understands after trying the games, it could help our case. Let's hope so, Jack said. watching alien dignitaries board their various transports outside. Because right now, half the galaxy thinks we're bloodthirsty savages playing at war until we can start a real one. Back in his temporary quarters, Ambassador Krill reviewed what he had learned about human video games. Unlike his more peaceful galactic colleagues, he was intrigued rather than horrified. The Drenthax had a long warrior tradition before transitioning to peace. They still honored their battle heritage while choosing not to practice it. Perhaps, he said to his aide, these humans have found a middle path we did not consider. They channel their aggressive instincts into harmless simulation rather than suppressing them entirely. Is that not dangerous? The aide asked. We shall see, Krill replied. Tomorrow I will experience these games myself. Then I will judge. Meanwhile, in the recreation room that had started all the trouble, Sam Richards was briefing a group of embassy staff. Until further notice, all combat games are restricted, he announced. Stick to puzzle games, sports simulations, and creative programs when in public areas. The staff grumbled but understood the severity of the situation. How long will this restriction last? Someone asked. Until we convince the galaxy we're not violent psychopaths, Sam answered. So maybe pack your shooter games away for a while. The cultural exchange program began the next day in a specially prepared room at the Earth Embassy. Ryan Winters, a professional esports player who had been quickly flown in from his tournament in Tokyo, stood nervously in front of various gaming stations. Each station was designed to showcase a different type of game, from strategy to sports to mild adventure games. The combat simulators that had caused the initial trouble were noticeably absent. Dr. Kate Simmons, a psychologist specializing in human play behavior, would monitor the aliens' reactions. Small sensors would track their biological responses to ensure no one became too stressed. Remember, Kate told Ryan quietly as they waited for the alien visitors. Start them with something simple, nothing too intense. Ryan nodded. He wore a shirt with Earth's emblem and a friendly smile, both part of the carefully planned diplomatic effort. Got it. Cute and friendly games first. The door slid open, and 3 alien representatives entered. Ambassador Krill of the Drenthax came first, his stocky frame moving with purpose. Behind him glided a Teslori scientist, a thin being with 6 limbs and large, compound eyes that shimmered with analytical interest. Last came a reluctant-looking junior diplomat from the Silvarian delegation, a plant-based sentient with bark-like skin and leafy tendrils that constantly moved in gentle waves. Welcome, Kate said warmly. Thank you for participating in our cultural exchange. Today we hope to show you how humans use interactive entertainment. We are curious, the Teslori scientist replied, her translator making her voice sound metallic. Though some of my colleagues believe this research is unnecessary, they have already concluded that humans are dangerously violent. Ryan stepped forward. I hope to change that impression. I've been playing games since I was a kid, and I've never hurt anyone in my life. Ambassador Krill made a sound that might have been a laugh. In ancient Drenthax culture, warriors would train children using mock battles. Perhaps your games serve a similar purpose? Not exactly, Ryan said. They're mainly for fun. Let me show you. He guided them to the first station, where a colorful puzzle game waited. The Silvarian diplomat seemed most comfortable with this, using his tendrils to manipulate the controls with surprising skill. The Teslori scientist observed with clinical detachment, taking notes on a small device. But it was Ambassador Krill who surprised them all by showing little interest in the puzzle game, and instead staring longingly at a station further away. What is that one? He asked, pointing to a strategy game display showing a map with various units. Ryan hesitated, looking at Kate, who gave a small nod. That's a strategy game, Ryan explained. It simulates commanding armies, building cities, and managing resources. Ah! Krill's eyes lit up. Like the war exercises our ancestors would conduct with stone markers. May I try this one instead? Kate stepped forward. Of course, Ambassador. These games are about choice. You can play whatever interests you. While the Silvarian continued with puzzle games, and the Teslori methodically tried each station in order, Ambassador Krill sat down at the strategy game terminal. Ryan quickly explained the basics. So I control these units here, and my goal is to defeat the opposing forces while building my civilization? Krill asked. Exactly, Ryan said. It's about balancing many factors: economy, military, diplomacy, and technology. What happened next surprised everyone. Ambassador Krill became completely absorbed in the game. His fingers moved with increasing confidence over the controls as Ryan explained each feature. 2 hours passed, and while the other aliens had rotated through several games with polite interest, Krill had not moved from his station. Fascinating, he muttered as he researched a new technology in the game. The complexity of these decisions, the consequences of each choice. Dr. Kate Simmons watched the ambassador's readings with interest. His stress levels were low, but his engagement was extremely high, similar to how humans responded to enjoyable games. During a short break, the Tislori scientist approached Kate. I have a hypothesis, she said. The Drenthax have a warrior history they have suppressed for centuries. Perhaps this simulation allows Ambassador Krill to connect with his species' past without violating their current peaceful principles? Kate nodded thoughtfully. That's insightful. For many humans, games can be a way to explore experiences we'd never want in real life. The afternoon session brought 4 more alien visitors. A pair of Merluvian diplomats arrived but refused to try any games, instead observing from a distance with obvious disapproval. They left after only 30 minutes, their report to their superiors already being composed as they exited. The cultural exchange program continued for 3 days. Word spread among the alien delegations. Some came out of diplomatic obligation, others from genuine curiosity. Ambassador Zekthora, who had started the controversy, declined all invitations to participate. On the 3rd day, a small incident threatened to undo their progress. Eric Johnson, a junior human diplomat, had joined the exchange program to help demonstrate games. Against the established protocol, he showed a group of Silva-Aryan representatives a first-person shooter game. The Silva-Aryans, whose plant-based biology made them particularly sensitive to images of destruction, became visibly distressed. Their leaves curled and their bark-like skin lightened, signs of extreme stress. They quickly left the room and returned to their iron quarters, refusing further contact that day. Jack Peterson was furious when he heard about the incident. What were you thinking? He demanded of Eric in his office. We specifically said no combat simulators without clearing it first. I thought they'd find it interesting, Eric defended himself. They seemed curious about different types of games. Your poor judgment has set us back significantly, Jack said. The Silva-Aryans have filed a formal complaint. Ambassador Zekthora is using this incident as further evidence that humans have violent tendencies. While the Silvarian incident was a setback, it was balanced by an unexpected development. Ambassador Krill had become an enthusiastic advocate for human games. He had spent nearly 20 hours playing various strategy games and had begun organizing gaming sessions among his own staff. These simulations, he explained to curious members of other delegations, are not about glorifying violence. They present complex problems requiring thought and planning. The combat elements are merely one aspect of a larger system. On the evening of the 3rd day, as the program was winding down, Krill approached Jack and Ryan in the embassy lounge. Director Peterson, he said formally, I wish to make a statement to the Galactic Council about my experience with human recreational activities. Jack tried not to look too hopeful. We would welcome your perspective, Ambassador. Krill nodded solemnly. I will tell them that these games, as you call them, have been misunderstood. While some contain elements that simulate conflict, their essence is about challenge, strategy, and mastering complex systems. The Drenthax delegation sees no threat in these activities. It was the breakthrough they had been hoping for. One respected alien voice speaking in defense of humanity could change the entire conversation. As they celebrated this small victory, Olivia Martinez rushed into the lounge, her face concerned. Jack, we have a problem, she said. The Vexilians, have proposed a full scientific investigation of human psychology. They're calling for brain scans of humans during gameplay to determine if we're neurologically predisposed to violence. The celebration ended abruptly. They had made progress. But the diplomatic crisis was far from over. Dr. Alan Wright checked the brain scanner one more time. The advanced medical device normally used for diagnosing neural conditions had been repurposed for today's crucial experiment. If successful, it might save Earth's standing in the galactic community. Are the monitors calibrated for both human and alien brain patterns? He asked his assistant. Yes, doctor. We can display both side by side for comparison. Alan nodded and looked at the observation room where representatives from 12 alien species waited. Ambassador Zek Thora sat in the front row, frills flat, against its neck in what humans now recognized as a skeptical expression. The Vexilian demand for a scientific investigation had escalated the diplomatic crisis. Yet it also presented an opportunity. Jack Peterson and his team had convinced the Galactic Council to allow a controlled study comparing how human and alien brains responded to simulated combat. In the testing chamber, 2 volunteers waited. Ben Foster, a human security officer, sat in one chair with neural sensors attached to his head. In the other chair was Tixna, a Teslori scientist who had agreed to participate out of professional curiosity. We'll begin with a neutral stimulus, Alan announced to the observers. Both subjects will view peaceful natural scenes while we establish baseline readings. On screens visible to both volunteers and observers, images of Earth's oceans, mountains, and forests appeared. The brain scans showed similar patterns of calm appreciation in both species, with minor differences due to alien neurology. Now we'll show images of real violence from historical records, Alan continued. The screens changed to show footage of actual human conflicts, wars and battles from Earth's past. Ben's brain scan showed clear signs of distress and empathetic pain. The Teslori's brain showed similar responses of alarm and aversion. Both species react negatively to actual violence, Alan explained. This is the expected response from socially adjusted beings. Next came the crucial test. Both volunteers were given controllers and asked to play a combat simulation game. The MBA observers watched intently as the neural readings changed. Ben's brain scan showed something remarkable. The areas associated with stress and distress dimmed, while regions linked to puzzle solving, strategic thinking, and mild pleasure activated. It was dramatically different from his reaction to real violence. The Teslori's readings, however, showed confusion and continued distress, similar to watching actual violence. Alan highlighted the differences on the main display. As you can see, the human brain clearly distinguishes between real and simulated combat. The neural signature when playing this game more closely resembles solving a complex puzzle than experiencing actual violence. A murmur spread through the observation room. Several aliens leaned forward, their attention fixed on the comparative brain scans. This is consistent across human subjects, Alan continued, displaying additional data from 20 test cases. Unlike most galactic species, humans have a neurological firewall between simulation and reality. What looks like practicing violence to you is processed by our brains as abstract problem-solving. Ambassador Krill of the Drenthax stood up. This matches my own experience with human games. When I played their strategy simulation, I felt the challenge of the system, not bloodlust. Ambassador Zekathora remained unconvinced. This may simply indicate humans have become desensitized to violence through constant exposure to these simulations. Actually, Alan countered, our data shows the opposite. Regular gamers show more empathetic response to real suffering than non-gamers, suggesting the games actually help humans process and compartmentalize violent impulses rather than encouraging them. The presentation continued for another hour, as Alan showed additional evidence. The assembled aliens remained divided in their reactions, but at least some were beginning to reconsider their views on human psychology. After the demonstration, the Teslori scientific community requested permission to conduct their own studies on human subjects. Their scientific curiosity had been piqued by the unusual way human brains processed simulated experiences. This is progress, Jack told his team afterward. The Teslori are highly respected for their scientific rigor. If they confirm our findings, other species will listen. But even as they made scientific headway, diplomatic tensions continued. The Vexilian Confederation published a scathing report suggesting that humans were desensitizing themselves through simulation to prepare for actual warfare. The report spread quickly through galactic media channels. Patricia Garcia, Earth's ambassador to the Vexilian homeworld, faced increasingly hostile questions from their press. Is it true that human children begin military training through these games as early as age 3? One reporter asked. Absolutely not, Patricia replied patiently. These are entertainment, not training, and games for young children contain no combat elements whatsoever. Yet your own studies show that humans who engage in these simulations develop faster reaction times and improved strategic thinking, skills useful in warfare, another challenged. Those skills are useful in many fields, including medicine, science, and disaster response, Patricia explained. The same abilities that might help in conflict also help us save lives. Meanwhile, back on Earth, game developer Susan Cooper worked with an unlikely team, 3 humans and 4 aliens, to create something new. The problem is that most of our games were designed for human psychology, she explained as they gathered around her workstation. What we need is a game that provides enjoyment across different neurological frameworks. The alien designers, including representatives from the Teslori, Drenthax, and even a cautiously interested Silverian, offered insights into how their species processed challenges and rewards. For my people, the Silverian explained, growth and nurturing provide the greatest satisfaction. Combat disrupts our harmonious connection with life energies. Susan nodded thoughtfully. So what if the game's core mechanic was about restoration, rather than destruction? Players could repair damaged ecosystems or heal injured creatures, with strategic elements focused on resource management. The team worked day and night, creating prototypes and testing them with volunteers from different species. Their progress was promising but slow. In the wider diplomatic arena, division continued. Some species, particularly those with their own warrior histories like the Drenthax, began to accept human gaming as a harmless cultural quirk. Others, led by the Vexalians, continued to push for restrictions on human participation in galactic affairs. The Galactic Council scheduled a formal hearing to determine if additional monitoring of human activities would be required. Earth's representatives prepared their case, gathering evidence and testimonials. One afternoon, as Jack Peterson reviewed their presentation, Ambassador Krill visited his office unexpectedly. Director Peterson, I have been in contact with representatives from 7 other species who have tried your games during the cultural exchange program. Jack looked up hopefully. And? We have decided to submit a joint statement to the Council. We will argue that while human recreational activities are unusual by galactic standards, they pose no threat to peace. In fact, they may represent an advanced method of managing aggressive instincts that all sentient species possess to some degree. It was more support than they had dared hope for. Yet Ambassador Zekthora and the Vexilian bloc remained powerfully opposed. As Jack walked Krill to the door, the Drenthax ambassador made an unexpected request. Before I depart, might I have a copy of that strategy game for my personal use? For cultural research purposes, of course. Jack smiled. Of course, Ambassador. For cultural research. The scientific and diplomatic maneuvering continued. Earth's position remained precarious, but for the first time since the crisis began, there was real hope for understanding. 6 months had passed since the gaming controversy began. The massive dome of the Pan-Galactic Cultural Festival glowed with colorful lights as thousands of beings from across the galaxy gathered to share their arts, music, foods, and traditions. For the first time, Earth had been invited to host a major exhibit. Greg Wilson stood nervously at the entrance to the Earth Pavilion. Once a game designer for a small studio, he now headed the Interspecies Gaming Initiative, a position that hadn't existed half a year ago. The team he led, a mix of human game developers and alien cultural experts, had worked non-stop for months on their project. Are the servers running smoothly? he asked a technician checking the final connections. All systems green, the technician replied. The network can handle up to 500 players simultaneously. Greg nodded, trying to calm his nerves. Today's demonstration would either cement humanity's redemption in galactic society or confirm the worst fears about human tendencies. The Galactic Council members would all be watching. Inside the pavilion, gaming stations arranged in a large circle awaited players from different species. At the center stood a holographic display showing a virtual world, not of conflict, but of a planet in crisis. Natural disasters, resource shortages, and environmental challenges threatened the digital inhabitants. The game they had created, Convergence, required players to work together across species to save the world. The first visitors are arriving, announced Olivia Martinez, who had been promoted to Senior Cultural Relations Officer after her work during the crisis. The early attendees moved cautiously through the exhibit, examining Earth's art, music, and scientific achievements. Some approached the gaming area with visible curiosity, others with lingering suspicion. Ambassador Krill arrived with a delegation of Drenthak's officials. In the months since he had first tried human games, he had become something of a gaming enthusiast, even organizing regular strategy game tournaments at the Drenthak's embassy. Greg Wilson, he boomed cheerfully, extending all four arms in the traditional Drenthak's greeting. My staff has been looking forward to this event. We have practiced on the previous versions you shared. Greg relaxed slightly. At least they had some guaranteed participants. The Teslori scientific delegation arrived next, led by the same researcher who had participated in the brain scan studies. They approached with academic interest, asking detailed questions about the game mechanics and psychological principles involved. By midday, representatives from 17 different species had gathered around the gaming stations. Some were there out of genuine interest, others from diplomatic obligation, and a few clearly intended to confirm their existing negative opinions. To everyone's surprise, Ambassador Zek Thora entered the pavilion. The Vexilian diplomat who had started the controversy had avoided most human cultural events since the incident. Now flanked by aides, the ambassador moved toward the center of the room where Jack Peterson was greeting guests. Ambassador Zek Thora, Jack said, hiding his surprise. We're honored by your presence. The ambassador's frills rippled slightly. The Confederation believes we should observe all significant cultural presentations, even those we find concerning. Of course, Jack replied smoothly. Would you care to observe our new gaming project? It was designed with input from multiple species, including some of your allies. The ambassador hesitated, then nodded curtly. I will observe. Greg stepped forward to address the gathered crowd. His voice shook slightly as he began. Distinguished representatives of the galactic community, thank you for joining us today. 6 months ago, a misunderstanding about human recreational activities caused concern among many of your peoples. Today, we hope to show you something new, a game created, not just by humans for humans, but by multiple species for all sentient beings. He gestured to the holographic display showing the virtual world. This is Convergence. Unlike traditional human games that sometimes feature conflict, Convergence focuses entirely on cooperation and problem solving. Players must work together to save a planet facing multiple crises. Each species brings unique abilities to the challenges, just as we all bring unique perspectives to our real galactic community. The stations activated, showing the game interface adapted for different physiologies, touch screens for some, voice controls for others, even thought-sensitive interfaces for the more psychically advanced species. We invite you to try this experience with us, Greg concluded. Not as observers of human culture, but as participants in a shared creation. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Ambassador Krill stepped forward and took a position at one of the stations. The Teslori scientists followed, then representatives from the Silverian delegation, who had helped design plant growth elements of the game. Gradually, more aliens joined until most stations were filled. The game began, and the holographic display showed their cooperative efforts to manage resources, redirect water to drought-stricken areas, develop new technologies, and evacuate populations from danger zones. Jack Peterson watched anxiously as the aliens learned the controls and began working together. Some adapted quickly, others struggled, but there was genuine engagement. Ambassador Zekthora observed from a distance, frills moving in complex patterns that humans still couldn't fully interpret. After 20 minutes, something unexpected happened. An unplanned disaster struck in the game. A massive solar flare threatened an entire continent of the virtual world. The players had to rapidly reorganize their strategies, and then, without prompting, Ambassador Zekthora stepped forward to an empty station. "Your simulation lacks sufficient radiation mitigation strategies," the ambassador stated. "The Vexilian Confederation has extensive experience with stellar radiation. I will assist." The room fell silent as the ambassador began to play, long, fingers moving with surprising skill across the controls. On screen, the ambassador's character deployed advanced shielding technologies to protect population centers from the flare. Working with a human player and a Drenthax representative, the ambassador's character helped coordinate the emergency response. When the crisis was successfully resolved, genuine applause broke out among both players and observers. 2 hours later, as the session concluded, Ambassador Zekthora approached Greg and Jack. "This experience was informative," the ambassador said. "While I maintain concerns about human combat simulations, I acknowledge that cooperative problem-solving appears to be an equally important element in your recreational activities." It wasn't a complete endorsement, but it was progress. As the ambassador departed, Olivia joined them, barely containing her excitement. "The Galactic News Network is calling it a breakthrough in interspecies understanding," she said, showing them her communication device. "And look, the Galactic Council has just released their revised cultural assessment of humanity." Jack quickly read the document summary. The Council noted that while humans' enjoyment of simulated conflict remained unusual by galactic standards, it appeared to be a harmless psychological outlet that might even contribute to humanity's remarkable adaptability and problem-solving capabilities. More importantly, the assessment removed all recommendations for special monitoring or restrictions on human activities. "We did it," Jack said quietly. Greg looked around at the gaming area, where aliens and humans continued to play together, communicating across species barriers as they tackled virtual problems. "No," he replied. "They did it. We just created the opportunity." As the festival continued into the evening, something remarkable happened. Word spread about the human game. That wasn't about fighting, and more visitors came to try it. Friendships formed between players of different species who had previously viewed each other with suspicion. The next morning, as Greg prepared for another day at the festival, he received a message that made him smile. The Galactic Council had approved funding for the first Interstellar Gaming Olympics to be held on Earth the following year. What had begun as a diplomatic crisis had transformed into a new avenue for interspecies understanding. As he shared the news with his team, Greg recalled something his grandmother used to say: "Sometimes you need to play together before you can work together." Across the vast differences of biology, culture, and history that separated the galaxy's peoples, perhaps games could build bridges that formal diplomacy never could.